Okay, so good. Now the important thing is that we all need to have the participation, and what I'll try to do is at regular intervals I will post some questions for all of you. Those questions are something which need some work on your end. Okay, so there would be questions on current issues related to renewable energy, related to EVs, and so on. Okay, and I would like to know your thoughts on them so that we can start a kind of a debate. Because you see, most of the things that we do, you can also read from some books and so on and enhance your knowledge. But it's more important is that we should have a lively debate. Okay, and that debate we will have through our discussion forums. And maybe if we find some very interesting topic in the discussion forum, we can pick that up and have a discussion in the webinar. So what do you think about that idea? Think that would be a good way forward. So in that way, we have a more collaborative learning and a learning which is based more on questions and answers. So if we learn to ask more questions, then I guess we will be learning the topic better. So we should give it a try.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes,
then
sir. Yes,
I'll
sir.
be posting the questions, and maybe by tomorrow, latest by tomorrow afternoon, I'll post a question on the discussion forum. And it would be a question which is not from the course material, but it has to do with more of your understanding, your ideas, your concept, or how do you think you want the e-mobility and the renewable energy to evolve in India. Okay, so it's a debate of that kind which we will kick start on the discussion forum. So now I think, yeah, many people have joined in. So we have 38 people, including myself. So I think we can start with the today's session. So we'll have to bear in mind that since this is limited, all the logins that I have are for limited duration. So we will try to finish it before the time is out. But in case we abruptly end it, then it is because we have ran out of time. Okay. And in the meantime, I would also request everyone to keep their uh, microphones on mute. And in case you have a question, you can unmute yourself and then ask the question. So that way we will reduce the disturbance for others. So I'll now share the screen, and please tell me if you are able to see the PowerPoint. Okay. So are you all able to see it? Is it visible to all of you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
sir.
Okay. Good. So then what we can do is we can start with our discussion, and maybe it's possible we might not be able to finish it entirely today, but if something is left over, we will take it over to the next session. Fine. So here you see, today we will be talking about EV charging infrastructure. And when we talk about EV charging infrastructure, we will look into various dimensions of it. Now, before we go any further into it, let's look quickly into the efficiencies which are involved when we talk about mobility. Okay, so if we take a petrol car, and if I do the well to wheel analysis, which is shown here, so you are digging the oil from the well, which has its own efficiency. Okay, then you have the refineries which have their own efficiencies. Then you have the distribution network, all the petrol stations and petrol pumps, they have their own efficiencies. And eventually you have the car, the internal combustion engine of the car, which would have its own efficiency. So if you see, from the well to finally the wheel, you would get hardly 15% of the energy that is contained in the oil that we have dug out from the earth. So that is the scenario. If you use oil. Okay, now there is another process where you can convert coal into oil. Okay, now if you do that, so in that case the efficiency is even less. We get around 7% efficiency. If we use the EVs, and if the power generation is predominantly based on carbon or coal, then the efficiency of EV is 24%. Okay, because you dig the coal, that is the coal mining, You take it to the power station, produce electricity. It has its own efficiency of around 35%, which is the best we might be able to get. Maybe some power plants can come close to 40, but nothing beyond that. Then we have the distribution network, transmission and distribution. So the best networks can have up to 95%. In India, we don't have that yet, but maybe in half a decade or a decade, we would be reaching to this point, and the vehicle would have an efficiency of 75%. So if I take well to wheel efficiency in case of an EV, which is predominantly driven by electricity, which is produced by coal, then I have an overall efficiency of around 24%. But the same thing changes drastically if I use more of solar energy to produce electricity. Okay, so here then I have the solar farms. Then comes the distribution network, which has its own efficiency. The car has an efficiency of around 75%. Okay, then the overall efficiency of the system comes to around 70-71%. So you see, if I have an electric car and it's run on conventional electricity, then we are not going to do much of a justice to the environment. But if we try to bring the entire transportation network to renewable energy, which is solar in India's case, okay, then to we might be able to improve the efficiency of the entire system and reduce the impact on the environment. So this is something which we have to keep in mind. Now, there has been a lot of discussion going on around the e-mobility, the electrification of the transportation and so on in India. But to understand that, it is very important to feel about what Indian automobile industry is. Okay, so the Indian automobile industry today is one of the largest in the world, and it produces around 24 million vehicles. That was the number for 2015, 2016. The numbers are almost similar now also. Okay, so it produces around 24 million vehicles, and because of that, it is one of the major producers of automobile in the world. Moreover, if we see today, so the automobile industry is around 7 to 8% of country's GDP, which is a huge chunk. And the out of all the automobiles that are produced in India, 80% of the market share is for two-wheelers, the motorcycles and the scooters. So this is the state of the art of the Indian automobile industry. Now here there are certain key takeaways. So in India, if you're talking about electrification, then a lot of emphasis should be given to the two-wheeler segment, because that is the chunk of India's automobile industry. Similarly, if I look further, what are the strengths of the Indian automobile industry? So if we see, then automobile industry in India is a net exporter. It is truly a made in India story. Okay, it had, before all this crisis happened and we went for a lockdown, till then it was one of the fastest growing sectors of the Indian economy. Okay, and it is also expected, if things go normal from now on, then India would be the world's third largest car market by this year, end of this year, 2021. Okay, so by third largest car market, I would mean the first is the US, then China, and then it would be India. And of course, the largest automobile manufacturer in India is Maruti Suzuki, for if you see from the volume point of view. And now we also can have a look at the competitiveness of Indian auto industry. Okay, so if we see the Indian auto industry here, I have used a color code. Okay, so if you see a blue color, that means, like for example, we have manufacturing skills, and then we have China, and then this is the blue color. So this blue color actually means that it is less competitive than India. And wherever you see the yellowish gray color, it means in that sector, that country is more competitive than India. So if we look at East Asia, and if we start with South Korea, one of the most advanced economies in Asia. So here, if you see, Then in design and engineering skill, South Korea is more competitive with India, okay, or almost equal. Then in manufacturing skills, they are equal or better than us. In manpower cost, South Korea does not compete with India. It is less competitive than India. In supplier base, imagine in supplier base, South Korea does not come close to India. India has a much better supplier base. And for raw materials, of course, Korea is more competitive than India. And if you see for China, then in manufacturing skills, India is more competitive than China, contrary to the belief that China has a big manufacturing base in automobile. But in skills, India is far ahead of China. And in supplier base, we are far, far ahead from China. And then we look at other East Asian economies, so Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, so they don't even come close to the advantages that India has. Similarly, if I look Central and Eastern Europe, okay, so here we are not looking at Western Europe like Germany, France, Netherlands, and so on. They are extremely competitive economies. But if you look at the countries like Czech Republic, Romania, Poland, Slovakia, Russia, Hungary, or Turkey, then you see that India is very, very competitive compared to the Central and the Eastern European countries. And similarly, if you see Latin America, India is far more competitive than Brazil and Mexico in the automobile sector. So if we see here, Indian automobile sector is truly a very, very competitive market. It has a good deal of very skilled people employed in it, and it's one of the top-notch industries in the world and is capable of competing with the best in the world. Okay, so that is the sum and substance of this slide. So this is actually a very, very encouraging figure. But now, if we want to keep this encouraging figure, then we have to keep in mind that this shift from classical internal combustion engine vehicles to electric vehicles should be done very, very carefully, because if the country rushes through that, if we try to make this transition extremely fast, then it would mean that there would be a loss of opportunity, okay, because we have not done enough R&D yet in this sector. So if we go very fast and make regulations that we should have a large number of electric vehicles on road, maybe in 5 years, 10 years, then that might cause disruption to the existing automobile industry. Okay, and it will also create grounds for dumping of inferior products from other countries, so our companies would lose the competitive edge. And we would lose the competitive edge because you see we have not yet invested enough money in developing the indigenous technology. The internal combustion engine vehicle manufacturing in India is around 100 years old, so it's a very matured industry, and a lot of investment has been done there. But for the new technology of EV and so on, we have not yet as a nation invested enough money. So if we make a hurried transition from the current automobile industry to the EV based automobile industry, then we might be losing our competitive edge, the competitive edge that we have here, which I showed you in the previous slide. Okay, so with this competitive edge, we should not lose, and we should keep maintaining this competitive edge. So that's the idea of the transition that we have to make. And also, these are the challenges that face us, because we have to make sure that we should be able to keep India very competitive in the coming months. Now, this is all which is at stake. Okay, and if we have to make this shift, okay, then we have to be careful. And moreover, if we make the shift from internal combustion engine to EV technology, then what might happen is that we might reduce our oil import bill. Okay, so we can reduce our oil import bill by at least $60 billion, which is a huge amount of money, and that can be diverted to other activities of the country. Maybe a good part of that can also go in training manpower, training younger generation in EV technology, to set up more research and development hubs so that we keep on growing in this sector, the EV sector. And not only will we save money and diversify our investment, but we will also reduce our emissions by one third at least, okay, which is good for the environment. And we will be creating a new kind of a sector which will include chargers, solar PVs, and so on, which will be a new sector for employment. So these are all the benefits that we are going to get. But to get these benefits, it is very important that we should make the shift very, very carefully. Okay. And if we make the shift very, very carefully, then first of all, we will open up a new segment. We will reduce our cost of oil imports. So around 82% of our oil requirements are met through imports. So we will be cutting that to a very, very large extent. And also we would be saving money because we don't need to import much of an oil, which is a big drain to the economy. And the most important thing, which I keep emphasizing, is that we will create a market for new skills, for new job opportunities, okay, which is essential, extremely essential, so that we employ the youth of the country in high tech sectors. And to address all this, so the government of India came up with all these missions. Okay, so one of the first mission was National Mission for Electric Mobility, and now we have under this National Mission on Electric Mobility, FAME 1 was introduced. The FAME 1 got over, and last year the FAME 2 came into force. So the idea of both the FAMEs was that we would encourage the domestic Indian manufacturers to produce more EVs and give subsidy to the buyer so that they can buy the EVs, and the government will take care of the excess cost in terms of subsidy to make this will then make the EVs competitive to the internal combustion engine vehicles cost wise. So that was the idea of the FAME. And now what has happened to the FAME so far is that the number of EVs on the road has not increased much. So we did not see a very drastic increase in the number of electric vehicles on road. And the reason for that have been many. So first of all, the way the subsidy was distributed was not very convenient for many people to apply. Okay, so people found it very difficult to apply for all those subsidies. The second part was that the charging infrastructure is yet not in place. Now, since the charging infrastructure is not in place, so people are a bit worried about how would I charge my vehicle. I can only charge that at home. If in between I need a charge, then I would have trouble, and it takes tremendous amount of time to charge an EV. If I have a car, EV car, then I would need around 7 to 8 to even 10 hours to charge my car. Maybe for a two-wheeler, the time is shorter, but still it runs into a couple of hours to 4 hours, so which is really a long time. So that kind of an anxiety people still have, which has not yet been addressed. And one of the major things which has gone wrong in kind of moving towards EV is that there was an MNRE subsidy, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. They had used to give subsidy for people who are producing battery powered vehicles, but that subsidy was taken away from the manufacturer, and they were at loss, the manufacturers. So because that was a good source of support from the government to the small manufacturers of two-wheelers and maybe e-rickshaws and so on, which also caters to a large segment of the market. So that subsidy was suddenly withdrawn. So those manufacturers were no more competitive, and they started to lose ground to the products coming mostly from China, and that was a big setback. But now I think we have learned our lessons, and the FAME 2 that we are currently having is much better, and it has a very good point that at least the vehicle should be at least 80 to 90% domestically made. Okay, so the when you make a vehicle, the producer has to make sure that almost 80 to 90% components are sourced from India, so as to minimize the imports. Otherwise what happens is that you buy all the kits from some other country, assemble it here, sell it, take the subsidy money. Okay, so in that case what we are doing essentially, we are subsidizing some other country with our resources, and in the process we are not developing our own technology, so we are losing out big time. So this is something which we have to uh, address and make sure that such mistakes are not repeated. Moreover, if I see here the electric car stock worldwide, okay, this is how the table looks like. So by 2017 there were 2 million plus EVs on road worldwide, which is rather not a very big number, because the world sold around 20 million vehicles. Okay, and out of 20 million, only 2 million were EVs, total EVs, and every year the automobile industry sells 20 million, and the total number of EVs so far in the world is around 2 million. So if you see, the amount of EVs worldwide is not yet large. It's a very very small percentage of the total number of vehicles that we have on road, and it is a very small number of percentage compared to the total number of vehicles we produce every year. Okay, so if you see here, Canada till 2010 they didn't have any EV on road. The first introduction came from 2011 onwards, and then this is the cumulative sum of the EVs on road that Canada has, so which is around 29 million, 29 100,000 vehicles. Okay, so the biggest is China, it's around 648. Okay, the next biggest is actually US, which is 563 100,000. So that is the total number of EVs on road in the United States. Okay, and if you see India, this is where we stand, around 4.8 thousand. Okay, so there are 5,000, or today there might be around 5,500 EVs on road in India. You see, we are one of the worst performing countries in terms of adoption of EVs. If you see the small European countries like Netherlands and Norway, they are doing extremely good. So compared to their population, Netherlands and Norway, especially Norway, has a huge number of EVs. So the population of Norway is 3 to 4 million. Okay, it's around one sixth of New Delhi or NCR, and you see the amount of EVs that the country has adopted. So number of EVs per capita is extremely high in Norway, and the northern European countries are doing extremely well in that. And if you look here, the battery electric vehicle uh, sales throughout the world, then this is what it looks like. So here, if we look at India, so in India, the situation doesn't look very happy. And if we look at other matrices, like the registration of new electric vehicles from 2015 to 16, the data is a bit old, but the trend is almost the same. So till 2016, the number of vehicles which were registered or which got registered every year in 2016, the number of vehicles that got registered were around 450 in India. So only 450 new battery electric vehicles were registered in 2016. And in 17, 18, and 19, it was still much less than 10,000. So it was in the range of 6 to 7,000 EVs being registered per year, which is actually a very, very small number compared to the size of the country and compared to the targets that the government has. And I think we are still far, far away from having a huge chunk of EVs on road in India by 2030. So these are the key challenges that the country faces. And the biggest bottleneck why this is happening is that there is a lack of domestic R&D ecosystem in EV technology. Most of the EV systems and subsystems are being imported. So we have a very less domestic R&D ecosystem. Second is the batteries, which are a very big bottleneck. So India still does not have a large scale EV battery manufacturing ecosystem. So most of the EV batteries, around 90 to 95% of EV batteries are imported, which adds to the cost, which makes the EVs extremely incompetitive. And the third point is that there is a lack of charging infrastructure, which I think you all must be very much aware of. We do not have an adequate charging infrastructure. So if a person buys an EV, then he is left high and dry and doesn't know that what should be done, and how can I ensure that I get charged wherever I want to or whenever I want to. So we don't have that extensive charging infrastructure which is necessary to give a kind of a guarantee to the EV buyer that no matter where or at what time a person is driving the vehicle, a charge is assured. Okay, so that assurance we don't have yet. And the final point, which is extremely important, is that no clear policy direction. So still we lack a very clear policy direction as to how EVs are going to roll out in the market, what government is planning to do, what are the various kinds of subsidies that the government would give to the buyer and also to the producer, what kind of ideas the government has to promote EV R&D in the country, what ideas are there to increase the number of chargers and to enhance the charging infrastructure throughout the country. So all those issues are still missing. So these are some of the points or some of the bottlenecks.